Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? Let me get everything up and running. Testing, testing, 1, 2. Let's get this to be down a little bit lower. And like that, like that. Let's see here. Pause, pause. So I hope you all are doing well. Let's see here. Why is my volume so soft? Testing, 1, 2. Oh, I was doing percussion samples. So I need to go here. Test, 1, 2. There we go. Now we have some audio. Wow. So I'm sorry for being a little late. My daughter has 2 rats, and we had to say goodbye to them today. And so I just got back from the veterinary offices where we said goodbye. And so I'm kind of emotionally spent at the moment. It was rough. They have cancer. They have tumors. We tried to drain one of the tumors, and so bear with me. I'm not in my normal, totally happy, jovial state. This live stream is dedicated to Pebbles and Olive, 2 wonderful rats we had for, oh God, a year and a half. Sad to see them go, but they were sick, and so they needed to go to, that looks okay. They need to go to rat heaven, so they're in heaven. It's kind of unfair how small rodents have such a short lifespan. It's like the size of the pet increases their lifespan, and you know, I love these rats. They were so sweet. Such sweet rats. Thank you guys. I appreciate the nice words. It was a rough morning. But here we are. Welcome. This is a live stream. My name is John Skippy Limcool. I haven't put up a banner at my site yet, but I have a spring sale going on. So if you use springtime25 as your promo code between now and I think the 26th of April, when Mega Magic Viola comes out, the sale will end, but springtime25 will give you a 25% discount on anything at the site. There's lots of products for lots of plugins. More coming all the time. I'm excited to show you some cool stuff. Yes. Tough morning, man. So we have a couple things to look at. I have now updated to Omnisphere version 2.4. I have updated all of the Spectrasonics apps so that they now are standalone available. So I could click Stylus RMX. You won't hear it. I don't have it configured audio-wise, but it's in standalone mode. It doesn't need a sequencer. It doesn't need anything to play. Same goes with Trillion, with Keyscape, and with Omnisphere. Oh, see, I need to fix that. So let's see if we go Livestream Producer. Okay. So those, I'm not going to cover the standalone apps. They're standalone. It does pretty much everything the plugin does, just not needing a host to load it. So that's not, excuse me. That's not a major thing to need to cover. What is nice is there are a few added things to Omnisphere 2.4 that are going to be useful for this Viola library and useful for programming in general. Thanks, guys. You guys are all saying nice things. Love our pets. I've lost 2 dogs, one to cancer of the nose and 1 to leukemia, which are tough. We've lost 2 guinea pigs, and now 2 rats. They're being cremated. Their ashes are coming back to join the other pets. We're going to have this little area of where our pets, our little sanctuary, it's growing. So, but let's focus on why we're here. We're here to talk about tech. and all good things with technology. There's some really cool things here. One thing that was added to Omnisphere 2.4 you might not be aware of that I've found really useful already is when you right click on any knob, there's this new enter parameter value, which is super helpful because there's a lot of times when you're doing things with some of these parameters with reverb where you want to get it down to like 1, and sometimes you can't get to 1. Like right here, I can't get to 1 without using a key. If I hold down Command, or no, Shift. If it's Shift, if I hold down Shift, it goes by single increments. But now I can just go over here and I can say enter parameter value, and I hit 1, and it's set at 1. So that's a really useful parameter. There's other cases where in multis, we're starting to do some things. Let's see. The directories, also just know that the directories have been changed to work on cleaning things up, so that you just see Spectrasonics products here, and then all user libraries are now under a user directory tab at the bottom. And so it cleans things up. When I don't have all 27, 28 libraries that I have released loaded, but when they're all loaded, it's a big long list. So this simplifies that list for that specific, just to keep it cleaner, which is nice. I approve. So like, let me show you something. So in Mega Magic Viola, which is coming out really awesomely great. Let's see, Viola. I showed you, let's do it. Let's do the whole story thing. So I showed you in the different categories of sounds in the samples. If we go over here to Viola, there's vibrato dry, there's no vibrato, there's the crescendos, and I have them numbered over here. Crescendo 3B means they're looped, so they're looped. 4 is the down ups, and then 5 is pizzicato, soft and hard. Then spiccato. Spiccato we were able to get Mary to do both up spiccatos and down spiccatos. And I have taken those, if you want to hear them, here's what they sound like by themselves. Here's dry. And then here's down. And so let's go dry down. They don't sound that different, but I'm doing some cool things. We've got, like, if we go like this, load this. That's the down and up spiccato samples. And what I'm doing, layer A is this, so just so you heard the whole thing, so it's really cool. Okay, so this is really cool. And there's ambient ones and stuff like that. But what's happening is this. So A is the spiccato up, B is the spiccato down. And then I'm using the arpeggiator to go from one extreme of velocity to another extreme of velocity. And I've shot the velocity scaling over here to 100% arp. So no matter what velocity I play on the keyboard, if I was to have this at key, oh, that's just for this one range. If I play really hard, it's taken all these minimum velocities and scaled them up because it's looking at what I play on the keyboard for where to shift this range. And if I play hard enough, it shifts it so that they're all maxed. Now bring this down. So you can do all sorts of crazy things. So by using that and then taking it to all, let's see, let's mute number 8. This is using 7 patches. Okay. And then I have a secret sauce layer, which is the power strings. And I actually need to work on this. I don't want it to be quite so spotty. But when you layer that with the dry, on the new update, are patches more quicker to load? I don't think so. I don't know if that has changed. I was talking with Jason yesterday because I'm having him make some additional patches, and you should know this. If you are comfortable shifting things around, I have inside of, because of the voicing work that I'm doing with this all the time, I have this set up in a different way, and I'm changing things quite often. I will show you what I do. So in Omnisphere, I have an out folder where I actually have the sound sources, the patches, and all the patch libraries are here out. And so I can go to sound sources. Now, if I have all of these sound sources installed, all of these libraries, if you're one of my wonderful customers that have bought lots of libraries, then this becomes very full of a whole lot of samples. And that means when you start installing a .omnisphere, it will take a long time to install. The more libraries, the more samples that it has to index. It has to, when it's importing a library, it does an indexing for each new sound that it creates. And so if you think of that process and you have, 7,500 samples in here, or whatever there is from all these different libraries, that slows things down, and it can slow down considerably if you have all this stuff in here. So I actually will go over quite often and pull out and put these into this, keep them organized because they have the same names throughout. Because if you're not comfortable moving files around and not familiar enough, then don't do this. This is more higher level. Be careful. You got to know what you're doing kind of stuff. Because the way that this libraries work is that the Plugin Guru Boombox multi-folder, there's also a Plugin Guru Boombox patch folder, and there's also a Plugin Guru, is it sound sources out? I don't have it in here. Somewhere there's a sound source for Boombox. It's not there right now. I don't know where it went. So, of course, I would choose that as the example, right? But the same name for all three folders is the same. When it spits out a .omnisphere file, it's spitting out, and that's how it does it, is the sound source folder, multi-folder, and patch folders have to be the same names. So that means if you're installing it and things are really slow, and if you're loading patches and it's really slow, it's probably because you have a lot of sample libraries. If the more libraries you have, the slower it will get to load up. I haven't noticed a lot if I go to like OMG Drums Volume 2 and I say load. Oh, see, I don't have the samples in right now because they're... But it would probably load fairly quickly. I think I have cello in, so I could go to cello. I could go down here to some of these. So it loads pretty fast. The keyscape stuff tends to load slow just because it's so many samples, so much data. So if you're saying it's slow and you're talking about loading a piano, that's because it's loading up a whole lot of samples and a whole lot of data. What's the best computer to run Omnisphere on smoothly? The more power you have, the happier you will be. Omnisphere is one of these synthesizers. It's scalable, okay? And we try when we're making our libraries to not get carried away. But I will tell you that it's very easy to use. There's a couple things. The most power-intensive things Let's start from scratch. Go to Mega Magic Viola. Here's the full library like I showed you. Let's play with the crescendo sample. I want to play with the crescendo sample. And we're going to do the V3Bs where it's looped. So like C4. If I was to take something like this and turn on granular, let's choose a granular preset that I've created that comes with Creaturesque. It's the only way to get these presets at the moment. I'm going to be changing that, but I'm using granular to do something cool. If I go to the creatives, to inner space, and I choose some of these, and I go here and I give myself 16 voices, and I give myself, I want to use this as a pad. It will kill my computer, almost. As you can see, just using granular and just using one inner space and playing it as a pad, it's killing. So we don't do that. I've told the guys that do voicing work with me not to do that. And if we do, it's only on things that are one note. There's a few pads where we've let that happen because it's really unique. But granular is the ability to take the sample and chop it into pieces and manipulate it. And for some reason, this engine, because of the quality and stuff, it's very powerful, requires a lot of CPU. Inner space is a form of, I believe, because of the fact of all these presets and the names that they have, it has to be some sort of a convolution reverb that you're running the sound through, but it's up to 2 convolution reverbs. So that by itself is a very big CPU consumption. And so the rules are, make sure you get i7 processors. I believe i9 processors are now on the horizon and are starting to be a reality for PCs. And I wouldn't doubt if like next year's Mac Pro might come out with the i9 processors, which are more powerful. But the most important thing is to get i7 processing, because it can do hyper-threading and make additional processors besides the ones that come with in physical. It makes the software duplicate. It does hyper-threading. It can do things that the smaller i3 and i5 processors can't do. And then go for as fast as you can on the processing speed, because for the most part, plugins take up a single processor. We've talked about this a number of times, but Omnisphere is not multi-thread. When I play and it's using this, it's not grabbing. I have a 12-core computer, and it'd be really cool if I went like this. And you saw all 12 processors go to work, and they were all evenly sharing the data. It would work, and I would be able to do anything I want. But plugins, because of the way that they are dealing with audio at audio rate, I guess they can't divide it among process. I don't know what the explanations and reasonings are, but it's only one processor. So you want that processor to be an i7 and to run as fast as it can, because so much of what we're doing in here is real-time DSP processing. And so, you know, memory is important. You need to have at least 32 gigabytes of memory to comfortably run these programs, especially when you get into more complex situations with lots of tracks and you're playing with sample libraries, which can get very large. That all becomes where, that's more where sample libraries is more where you're going to get into needing lots of memory. Although a lot of them will stream off disks, they still need a lot of memory to run. But the most important thing is the processor and the speed of the processor, the speed of the memory, so that the faster that is, the more it can handle, the faster the horses can run, basically. So, yeah, the AMD Ryzen is a new one that's for PC users. Looks very promising. So, let's see what other questions we have here. Any other questions? Latest update, no more problems. Thanks for... Oh, there's a 2.41 update. Oh, great. I didn't update this morning. I didn't have time. So there is a new update. I don't have that update. I don't know if they've added new features beyond just there was people doing a search and it would show up showing Chinese characters. There's a couple other more extraneous, not serious types of issues from my understanding. So I'm going to still stay right here and cover 2.4 because that's what I have. The other thing that they added that I'm excited about is in the modulation list, there's now a 3-step and a 4-step. And what these do, and where I think these will be really cool with the violins and so forth, is these can do really interesting things in some creative ways. Let me do this. Let me, yeah, we'll get into programming. I'm going to show you patches I have. Like, check this out. This is so crazy. One patch. One patch, my friends. So I will show you. We'll get into all these patches that I've made so far. We're going to make some patches together. And that's for the Viola library that comes out on the 26th. So let's initialize this patch. Let's call up a Viola sample. Oh, I was going to do something with crescendo. I'm going to do something a little different. I want something that's got more energy in it. So let's do something with just a vibrato. So let's say, actually let's use synth to start with, just to make this really clear. Once you start adding vibrato samples and stuff, and I'm showing 3-point modulation and stuff like that, it's harder to understand. But what we have, let's get this to be snappy. Now, if I assign 3-point to this, let's go over here to all mod sources and say 3-step, and let's have this high. There's now 3 steps instead of it being a full range. And each time I play, and if I don't want the 3-step, the 4-step is just dividing it into 4 steps. So combining that with the arpeggiator, and even if it's just set to a single step, really nice. So you could do similar things using some mod sources like the modulation envelopes, but it wouldn't be where each time you trigger it, it would be triggered. What's nice with this is if you turn off the ARP and you're playing chords, I think it's mono. I thought it'd be poly. No, it's mono. So this is especially useful for monophonic sounds. It'd be cool if you could play chords in it. But it's not working that way. Anytime you play 2 notes, it changes the cycle. Because I guess each note would equal taking and being an event, which would advance the LFO. So it makes sense that it can't be polyphonic. But monophonic is really cool. The other place, and I haven't gotten into this, so I'm not going to try to get into, there's a whole lot as far as to program change, I believe. I don't even know where to find that setup. I installed this literally yesterday, and so I don't work in that scenario, but you can now assign a controller or anything to be assigned to change patches, I believe. There's a lot going on there. There's a lot more going on as to recognizing parameters for real-time change. If you guys want to chime in on the how many synths do you own? I have a lot of synths. I have far more than in my room. How's that? I mean, you have to realize for almost 30 years, I've worked with Korg on every synthesizer that they've released in the workstation format, and a lot of the other synths like the Z1, as well as the wave drums. So I have a lot of them in storage. I'm using a lightweight Korg, I think it's the M50. No, it's the Cross, little battery powered. I like the Cross because it has a mod wheel that will stay somewhere. A lot of the Korg synthesizers, like my Kronos over here, it's a joystick. So when you go up, with ADSR, you can mod the sustain. William, I don't understand that. With ADSR, you mod the sustain or delay? With ADSR, you mod the... It depends on what you want to modulate. You can... With Omnisphere, you have access to modulating anything from effect parameters in delays, for example, to the sound. Now, you could use something like this for really cool effects, two effects. Like if you had this arpeggiating, maybe just a little bit here, and then we had a reverb. If we had this, do things where we had like the size, the time, modulate this with the 4-step. And then just to make it more pronounced, I would add something like an EQ. So depending on when you stopped, you're going to get different reverb times. Stuff like that would be really fun to play with. And then the strings. Yeah. Can you mod the S? Oh, the sustainer delay? Yes, you can modulate. I do that a lot. Let's get out. Let's initialize this. It's not easy to see how to do that, but it's there. Say that this is something I do a lot, because since the M1, I'm into velocity interacting with these sounds. Let's go to violin really quick, or viola. Violin, by the way, is going to be amazing when it comes out in probably July, June. And sometimes with this, I like to do things that aren't necessarily totally natural. Like I want velocity to increase the release and also sustain. Okay, so we could go over here to, we say new modulation routing, and we could say, I want velocity to modulate, and you go down to envelopes, and maybe you can't get to sustain. They still might not have sustain here. There is a way to do it though, because we know the tricks. What you would do is you would not use the amp envelope instead you would go to the amp envelope and say just standard default ADSR and have it at 100%. And then have this sustain out. And then you use mod, let's say mod 4 because it's polyphonic. So instead of velocity to there, you go velocity to mod 4 depth. And that lets you get to what would basically be a sustain type parameter. Let's have the velocity depth be 0. And let's go over here to 4. And let's make this be just a standard, oh, come back here. Standard ADSR. Let's see here, and have this be short. Oh, I need to have the volume also go through this. I'm on the wrong one. ADSR default. And then have also the volume of the whole sound. Modulate this to go through ADSR random mod envelope 4 as well. That's your trick. This is your overall amp. This basically disengages it from the amp envelope over here, so it's no longer affected. It's instead, I've told it to be affected 100% from the modulation envelope number 4. And I also have this modulation number 4 going to the depth. So I could go to mod envelope 4. I could have the sustain be here in the middle or wherever I want it to be. It's fairly short, or all the way up, you know. And now I'm modulating the sustain. So that's been around since the beginning of time. You've been able to do that because very cleverly, Spectrasonics put in a depth slider for the 4 modulation envelopes. And so because of that and the ability to right click and modulate this with anything, it becomes a real-time modulation source to the intensity of this. And so you can engage this for the amp, you can use it for effects, for all sorts of things. So yes, that would be the trick way to get velocity or some modulation source. If instead of this, I wanted to have step 4 to be for, you know, it works. So I have to play with this some. I wish it would be polyphonic. It'd be cool if there's a way where each time there's events, it like globally would. But I can see where it'd be the issue where each note equals an event to it or something like that. That's causing it to advance. The question of using Live Stage and Omnisphere 2 on stage. There's some great videos on YouTube from people that do main stage libraries. I think Abel Mendoza has done. I think that's thatworshipsound.com. You might check. That might be a place to look, Ivar. There's all sorts of stuff about setting up the different instruments and having main stage change from one sound to another. I don't use main stage. I don't use these in that context. So I'm not the guy to ask that specific question to. Let me zoom this in some. So let's see here. Get to my controls. Zoom in. There. So it's a little bit more clear what we're looking at. And we don't need to see the CPU at this point. All right. So other than that, that was mainly the main things that I have found that have been added. One thing that I'll show, let's do this, go to Viola. I was talking about that input of a, I'm doing this is kind of like a micro, because these are samples and here's an example where I listen carefully. I'm going to input a 0.004, and I'm going to copy this parameter, and I'm going to now go in and modulate this with random, and then right here I'm going to insert my parameter value of 0.004, and I have to do that to both samples. So this is where that inner parameter value comes in really handy. You have to hit return, by the way. It won't do it if you don't hit return. But now I need to modulate this with randomize and have the intensity parameter here of being 0.4. And what this does, just a slight randomizing of the attacks. Now, if I was to bring up the intensity higher, I lose the realism. And I get places where I don't hear rosin. So I don't want to do that. So entering a parameter value of 0.004 lets it go 0.008 to 0.000 for changing. And it's just enough that when I do that to all of these, so this entering a parameter value, it's saving me to have this new parameter value, because I can just paste, enter randomize, and put a value here, and then go to the next sample. Welcome to programming hell. This is what we do all the time. Modulate this with randomize and the intensity. I have to do that to all 7 patches that make up, and I'll explain to those of you that are unfamiliar why there's 7 patches. Let's see, insert parameter value there. And this is already, oh, I gotta do this one. Randomize, let's see, enter parameter value for what the sample start is. Randomize, and put up the parameter value intensity. So I have 7 patches in this multi to play the 7 different samples across the keyboard. If I was to have this be stack mode off and it's just this one patch up the keyboard, sounds great here. And it sounds good for 3 or 4 notes up. But once I get to like G or an octave higher, its realism is gone. Versus, and that's right here. So I have samples on C, G, C, G, C, G, C up the keyboard. Okay? Now, by doing that, it allows this viola to come to life a lot more than if it was just one sample. If it's just one sample, it's a cool synthy kind of thing, but it's not very real. At least here. And I'm very proud that I can get this close in realism with 7 samples. Whereas a lot of sample libraries, they love to tout the thousands of samples and the gigabytes of memory, and this is a fraction of that because I picked out carefully the right samples. We had Mary play multiple times on each note. I'm producing the session. I don't let her go to the next note until I hear the sample that will work. I actually hear it, and I am mapping it in real time in my head, and as well as sampling when I needed to with the computer. But I can hear and I can tell when I have the note with the qualities that I want in the map that I want. So I was pre-visualizing during the sampling session to get these 7 samples to... Okay, so it's really cool that we can do this with this small number of samples. Let's save. This is the dry. I'll show you a couple other versions. There's 3 techniques to the sounds. There's the dry, and then this is the ambient. Check out the difference. And if I have this, let's take that out so you hear just the viola by itself. And that ambience is recorded into the samples. So it doesn't interact, it doesn't get muddy. It sounds like you're in a beautiful concert hall somewhere in Europe. And then you add just a little bit of the string library, the atmosphere strings, and I have added. And I'll show you a couple other variations in patches now. This is really beautiful. This is combining, I first made this as a patch. So if we were to go to like the C4 sample, which is like number 5, right? Check this out. So if I go to here and I solo 5, I'm going to go to this and I'm going to map it across the whole keyboard. Here's what it sounds like as a patch. And this is a CPU heavy patch, I'll tell you. Now, compare that to the multi, where it's 8 samples across the keyboard. So it's really great to have all the samples available to work with. This is the Darkly Dreams, which is another beautiful one. So there's a whole lot of fun. I've got a whole lot more patches that I've made that I want to transfer into being multis. The patches kind of like give you the template for the thing, and then by taking it as a multi, it just makes it even more playable across the whole range. It's really great. So let me show you some of the patches I've come up with, and then we're going to make some patches together. There's some cool ones like Acrobatics in Space, like not Viola. Brings in a synth waveform. I badly want to have a 4x4 groove going right now to play along with it. It's terrible how that happens. Let's see if I can get this to be like that. And let's increase, zoom out just a little bit so that we can get both Omnisphere and my wonderful logo in place. I think that would make me the happiest. So let's go like that, and like, there you go. And then I'm down in the left corner. Hi down there in the left corner. All right, counting on you. Now these are patches that I made with 2.3. Just so we're clear, 2.3 patches will load easily into 2.4. When this library comes out, it will be a 2.4 library. And unfortunately, 2.4 patches and multis cannot be read by 2.3, 2.2, or 4.3, or 4.2, or yeah, 2.1. I'm sorry, it's 2. What am I thinking? I'm still a little messed up from this morning. It was rough. So yeah, it's Omnisphere 2.4. Patches and multis here will not load into 2.3, 2.2, 2.1. So you will need to update, and it's an update that will work on pretty much everything that Apple currently supports. I think from 10.9 on up, I think you can get it to work. And if you can't, contact Spectrasonics, and they've told me that it will work with 10.9 OS X. So there's a way to get it to work if it doesn't. I think. Just caveat, because I don't know for sure. But you need to be in 2.4 if you want to have the viola library. So, all right. So these are epic chords, which means to play chords with these sounds. And I started simple. It's kind of a pizzicato marcato. And what I'm doing is using spiccato and pizzicatoscape, which is a sampling of cello and viola pizzicato together. But what makes this really work is velocity is maxed, and I'm playing with a filter maxed, and then here's my arpeggiator. And what's fun with this is that you can take this, and it's kind of like those contact libraries where they have one of these step sequencer things. You can make all the different two is just different rhythms, different sounds. Now again, these don't sound very realistic because it's a single sample across the keyboard, right? But wait till you hear these as a multi. It will be amazing. I'm sure it will be. Okay, 3. So I'm adding noise and all sorts of crazy things to get, I'm trying to go different colors. So they're fun. And then here's where the really interesting stuff, and I'll show you the trick to this. Isn't that cool? And how I'm doing this is we don't have access to shift, third-party libraries. Spectrasonics has shift that they can apply to their samples, which is doing this. There's actually a way to do it by transposing and using chords to offset. You can actually do a shift without using the shift parameter. But when we use shift, it doesn't do anything. However, crush works, and it does the crush effect to the sound. Let's see if I go to this and I mute it. I have all these places. Kind of trashy, right? But when you're using an arpeggiator that's going, and then I just simply have LFO1 just going up and down to a measure. So it's doing a repeatable. And then I can play with the settings for where the timbre is and how intense I want this sweep of this LFO to be. See how it's a wider sweep? You could use a random LFO if you wanted. Have this maybe be to 8th notes. Or you could say instead of an LFO, make it just be random. So that way each time it plays a new note, anytime that you're using your arpeggiator that's playing new notes, random becomes available for sonic playgrounds all over the place. If you're playing notes and chords and it's just sustaining out, random won't do a lot because it's random based on notes, new notes. So you can get all sorts of crazy stuff going with that. So this is just basically, and then I was showing this to my assistant Taylor, and I was like, what if we took and had that same thing happen on this second layer, but inverted. So that while one is being an LFO, this is inverted for this layer. On layer A, it's not inverted. And it's different settings. So there's two oscillators that have the same LFO, taking it and doing a mirror type of an effect, where when it goes down in value on layer A, it's going up in value on layer B. That makes the dark one that used to be just dark have stuff on it. But it's badass, man. So the other thing that makes this work is the arpeggiator is set to chord, so that I can play chords. If I don't have it set to chord, if I had it just to say up, whole different application. It's nice. But it's different than having this whole thing happen with chords. Okay, so those epic came out really epic. Hiding in plain view. Will you have some vibrato violin patches in the library? Absolutely. There is the very first thing in the list is vibrato, both dry. So here's the dry. And if you know, on viola, the open string, there's no vibrato. So the first lowest note is straight. And we have it in dry, we have ambience. And then the Mega Magic is its own special. Which I imagine if you sample, like layered this with like a real dry string orchestra from something from Spitfire or ADO or something, I think it'd be really beautiful. And just give you something kind of special and unique and different than just strings by themselves to have that. But we have vibrato, we have no vibrato. We have crescendos. And you put this to the Mega Magic reverb on. Just goes into heaven. There's also looped versions of this, so it gets to the top, the apex, and I looped it right there. Okay. The down up is a downstroke and an upstroke. And then these are all looped, so we'll keep repeating that. Now, to me, both the down up and the slow motion are my favorite types of vibrato for limited samples because it just sounds so like realistic because she's just playing. It's not just a note that's hanging out and just playing the same thing. There's this motion and stuff. And then the motion slow is probably my favorite. And this is the one I spent the most time with her on to make sure that we got it right. And it's just each note. She's just standing there playing. And then I looped it so you can't tell. Yes, this viola player is playing for days. Okay. So in between there are the one-shot kind of things, the pizzicato. Okay, and there's ambient versions. And then the Mega Magic versions. So different applications can be done with the same samples because of how we treated them. Instead of just giving you dry samples, then you have to do your thing to it. There's Mega Magic. That's why it's a Mega Magic library. Pizzicato hard is a different timbre. So if we say, and I'll be doing some work as far as making between soft to hard. They're not drastically different, but we found enough that we could kind of separate them up. Spiccato. That's the up. Here's the down. More aggressive on the down. She actually made more of a face when she played them. Marcato's a little bit stronger. I must say, I think we spent a little bit more time and we got it more correct for marcatos, spiccatos, and the pizzicatos than we did for cello. I haven't sampled string instruments before cello, of bowed instruments before. And so I'm learning as I go. And Mary did both the viola and the violin is even sweeter and more incredible in a lot of ways than this. So I'm really happy with excited with how this turned out, but wait till you hear the violin. It's just incredible. So I showed you the motion slow. We have motion fast, which is it's not in tempo. Each sample is its own. Like this is something in programming to like layer with other elements that I expect that there'll probably be some really creative patches by you guys using the bowed fast sample with all sorts of different. I'm curious to see what you guys come up with. Harmonics and whispers were added that are different. We don't have those. We had motion slow and fast for cello. We didn't have harmonics. I think it might be harder on cello. And I just wasn't thinking about it back then. So, but with Mary, we got both the harmonics. Well, harmonics is kind of, it's like, well, it's Makes me really thirsty when I hear these. And then the whisper is just the most amazing. So alone. Okay. And then we get to the created layered sound design things. I did 4 of them for cello, and I named them after mountain ranges. And here I did them after just soundscapes. So the Regalscape is, this is the one that's kind of like it's layering the I think motion, slow, up, down, and viola and vibrato, and elements of both cello and violin to make like almost like an orchestra. And to make it even more orchestra-esque, there's 2 pads, one from Mega Magic Pads and one from Del Norte. So if you listen, you hear a synth in the sample. But when you play it, it's just super, super, super sweet. And then I did a high note version, so it's a, oh wait, that's Dream. There's Regalscape High. Because it's great up here for the pads that stay out in pop songs and stuff. Dreamscape is more dreamy. Okay. Filterscape is one of the sounds in the demo Viola library. Let me get my sound back. So this is the bowing fast, the motion fast, but it's cello, viola, and Mega Magic pads layered in it. So one note. But you have cello and viola both. Okay, and then Pizzicatoscape is layers of cello and viola, pizzicatos, viola and cello. So, and I did things where I have things panned left and right, just very subtly, so you get a stereo kind of timing. So those are the different categories of the whole library. Of these, I think there's what? There's 15, and there's 15 different samples. Yeah, there's a lot of range. There's a whole lot of stuff to play with. I'm really happy. So if we were to like initialize this, let's go to play with a sample from the Viola library you guys can get. And let me explain that to those of you that are new to this. So if you go to my website, pluginguru.com, let's shrink this to be smaller. It's a little big right now. So here is the website, and you have access to click right here where it says get the samples, make custom patches, show your programming skills. This is for the Mega Magic Viola samples. And there's 15 patches using 15 samples. You can get it for $2. This way you're registered with my site. I want people that are only registered with my site. You don't have to be a customer with lots of purchases or anything, but I don't want to just be a free download for, you know, the thousands of people that just show up and just download something for free and then they never use it and they don't participate. I find that if you have to be registered with my site and spend $2, you're going to be more interested in making patches. The whole idea of this is to give you the opportunity to play with these samples, Still 2 weeks before the library comes out. The library will come out 2 weeks from yesterday. So there's time. There's 1 week for you guys to work. Next Friday, is it next Friday? I think is the deadline. The 23rd. You have till the 22nd. So that would be, let's look here real quick. We're in April. So I need them by Sunday night, the 22nd. So get busy if you wish. This is optional. If you do make patches, and if I select them and put them in the library, you get the library for free. So it could be one of the best investments you've ever made, but you have to make good patches. I'm not just, if you're new and you're learning programming and stuff, then this is an awesome opportunity to get your programming skills going. But I'm picky. I don't just select patches just because someone makes patches and send them to me. I think with cello, we got like 160 patches, and I think 40 or 50 made it in, something like that. But I will say that I will release a library for free for everybody that has this. I will put everybody's patches together so you can all have each other's patches in the way you send them to me. Before I start doing my work to them, I will put them up for everybody to download for free. So you're kind of making a community library for this demo version of the library. So that's kind of a cool, fun thing to play with and think about. You get to contribute and then share it with your fellow Plugin Guru Nation people. So we have the Marcato, Pizzicato, Crescendo, will you consider a subscription service for exploratory patches? You might need to explain that to me. I'm not a big fan of subscription services for the most part at the moment. So William, can you explain that? I don't know what you mean by subscription for exploratory patches. What does exploratory patches mean? So let's play with this. I want to play with this sound. This is the motion. Oh, what other sources can be mixed in a patch? Great question, Greg. Any sounds in the library from Omnisphere sample-wise, the way to know is to go to the directory and say core. You can't use any samples from Keyscape. You can't use any samples from Trillion or Trilogy or the Bass Legends. Only core. But that way, the reason is because not all customers are going to have the other libraries. Not the Moog Foundation Tribute Library. Only the core library. Any samples. So you can use these samples with something. One of the two layers, it could be a synth waveform, or it could be a sample, and you can go choosing anywhere from the core library. But one of the two samples has to be a viola sample. That's the only basic rule on the whole thing is. Problem with the chord things is that you play in one thing and it sounds good. Play a minor and it's a mess. So cathedral choir, major, minor, sus, swell clusters, Now, a couple things to notice. I'm going to turn off layer B so we just hear layer A. Because this has that ambience in the sound, it means if I go to a filter, like a fairly strong, it does some cool kind of things in there. So we could have this be, so now we have it so it's slowly growing up and then slowly coming down. Okay. So if we're making patches for ourselves, can we mix any sounds that we have into a patch? You know, I'm kind of shying away from people contributing their own sound sources and samples. It just gets into the whole copyright licensing usage. Where did the sounds come from? What synthesizer? Is it a sample from a synthesizer and now that sample's copywritten? You can submit, and if I know for sure that it's clear that I can release it as a commercial library, that you created it yourself from an analog synthesizer or something. If it's from a sample from something else, it gets kind of tricky. No, I mean, just for my use. Oh, of course. Yeah, no. For your own use, you can make as many patches using anything you want for your own use. You can put it up, release it on songs. I don't have any restrictions on usage other than other libraries. I'd rather you not do that because that's not cool. So I'm going to take the velocity clear off the filter so that way whatever sweep I have going on, okay? So I kind of have a cool idea. I want to make a sound that has this like this doesn't really even like become recognizable. It's just this thing that's gonna go up and down, right? Let's use a delay times 3. This makes a left, right, and a center delay. And I have it just on layer A's effect channel in its rack. Okay. Now on top of this sweeping thing, I'm going to put a high pass filter version of the same thing. So let's go over here. Let's not choose this. Let's go to all, because then I can select from the Viola library, the demo library, which has different names, by the way, than the full library. The names will change. So you're going to have to keep both the demo folder of samples and this, like if something gets selected for the library, I will shoot it over to use the samples with the correct names, because I gave these different names because I hadn't finalized the library. But I want to use motion fast. And I have layer A off right now, so its little light is off, so I don't hear it. And instead of a low pass filter, I'm going to use either a band pass or a high pass. I'm thinking high pass. That way, and I want it to fade in on a more negative exponential so I don't hear it until later. And then it will show up. The reason is for that is I want this swelling resonant thing to kind of be there first. And then this high-pass filtered version takes over. And I want to have this happen a little bit faster. So we're going to bring this to be a little bit sooner before and... And then you'll be left with like this, like, I'm kind of picturing like, you know how an ocean wave hits and it's all intense and foamy and then it goes down and it's just a slow trickle of water fading out. That's kind of the... It's kind of the picture I'm picturing in my head. I'm a photographer too, so I think in those ways, of course. Let's go radio. By the way, I have a new camera coming. I can't wait. I have a Sony A7 Mark III full frame that will be showing up in a couple weeks. So and I might want to shoot this down an octave so I can get some lower tones. That's cool. Thinking moody. Just lost 2 pet family members, so we're kind of dark at the moment. And so let's see here. Let's call that a pad. And that's the Pebbles and Olive tribute pad. Because that's the name of our little rats that are no longer with us. So I'll fill this out. Mega Magic Viola. Save that. So we now have a little tribute for them. Cool. I'm gonna get sad. So that was one idea I had that I wanted to try. All right, so another idea. Somebody throw up an idea. Yes, there's a lot to do with the mod wheel and stuff. We could look at that. Let's see here. Mod wheel, we could actually bring in some really cool harmonic distortion to this. This is not... It's really soft. So when I finalize patches, I always try to get them to be close to 0 dB. And then we have to decide, yeah, we could do that. Well, the reverb is already kind of, there's so much mid-range stuff happening. All that mid-range energy is available to play with. So what I want to do is, one of my favorite effects is still the flame distortion. just because I can get like really cool sounds like that. Then I can filter it with the post filtering, and I have control over the mix right here. So you could have like, this might be one of the things, like, let's do this. Here, I'll show you. I love this trick. So copy this, get rid of it. We're gonna put the mod wheel onto the auxiliary send, and our auxiliary bus is sitting here just waiting for something to happen. Let's put a reverb, so it's going to have this huge splash of reverb happen, and then after that we're going to paste that effect. And then what's great with Omnisphere, and nothing else still to this day offers, is that I can have all these other sound parameters being controlled by the modulation wheel, not even thinking about, oh, I have 4 slots and I'm about to run out of slots. You just, what do you want to add to make it what you want? So now this is going to open up this reverb, which is being controlled by this distortion, which is also being controlled by that wheel. And I might actually keep this like open at a certain point, not letting it get totally dark when the wheel is down. And let me see, show the modulation so I control the range. I want it to get open. There. So this is all just thoughts and stuff without even playing it, just because I know the effects. But now let's listen to what it does. I'm going to play one note. I'm going to bring up the mod wheel. That's what I thought. So let's reverse these. Let's put this reverb after that distortion. So that this distortion is going to be filtered and opening up, and then this reverb is just going to grab it, and I'm going to make it even more sizzly by opening up the time of the high frequency. So now, so when I bring the mod wheel down, there's a sizzle. And I actually want to take it down 2 octaves. And let's do this. I can, because I don't have to worry about my levels right now because I'm like not hitting that hard, I'm gonna have this to 100 and probably have to crank it because it's viola. There's not a lot of low energy there, but there is some, and the filter is making some. So that's nice. And as that fades out, yeah. So it just gives me this color to add to it. Since it's a pad with resonance filters, and I could have it do the typical, like go modulate this with the wheel too, so that as the mod wheel opens, I could open everything. The price for doing that, though, is you've taken your filter, this shape, it's blown that out because it's now going way above it. So it's so far up that it's not going to come down forever. And if it does come down, you might not notice it. So compare that to, let's mute so we don't have the filter in it. We just have the distortion. So this way the filter still gets to do its thing. filter is still playing. Maybe have this come down a little faster. There's stuff happening with the filtering, which I kind of like. So for me personally, and you know, it doesn't need to be at -2. I think still. Because you kind of have to think what, you know, what's appropriate for the sound. Because it'd be really easy to add pulsing LFOs and make it rhythmic and go into a trance thing. But, you know, in this case, because it's a tribute and I'm kind of thinking of these little animals that are on their way to heaven, you know, so there's this kind of like this. There's this heavenly quality to it. I really like it. Please explain why you don't use Aftertouch and Expression as mod sources. Because I don't like not being able to control them very well. I've played very few keyboards with Aftertouch that actually worked the way I like. And I've found that I can program Aftertouch that works for my keyboard, and then you play it and it plays like crap. And so because there's no standard, because cheap keyboards and really expensive keyboards sit side by side and one plays it and it's just beautiful and you can dig in and dig out, and the next one you dig in and it goes whoop, straight to the maximum value and there's no in between values, I don't use it. I'm not a fan of it. It's one of those things, it's not that hard to program it, but it's one of those things you really need to program to taste to your keyboard. That's where Aftertouch comes into play. When we're doing work with a Korg synthesizer, I have the synthesizer that the Aftertouch is going to be used on, so I can shape it. But when there's patches like this, if I use Aftertouch and I have it work one way, it works differently with everything. And so it's just, I don't need it. I like the mod wheel. I like to keep it simple, make it consistent. And it's available if you want to use it, but it's not consistent on anybody else's keyboard the way it is on mine. So I'm going to make it so it works with me on my whatever keyboard, and then when you play it on your Fatar or your Roland or your Yamaha, everybody's keyboard's different. They have different, it's not a standardized, you know, this amount of pressure equals this value type of a thing. So I don't use it. Okay, Ivar. Just so you know, just so you guys know, make sure you know, the comments that you're making are going to be played forever with this video. So if you're talking about your dessert you're about to have, that's great, but everybody's going to read that from now on. It's really funny. All right, so we've got that. Let's do something more up-tempo, dramatic. So let's initialize this patch, because I always start either from an existing patch like I did. I could do that again. You can, as you saw, it's totally fine to start with one of these 15 patches in the library. Yes, even velocity handling is very different from keyboard to keyboard. So I don't have control over that, and I try to make it so it works, and people haven't told me that it doesn't play well on other keyboards. And I have tried. I have other keyboards in the room to try things on. But I've done Aftertouch experiments from this keyboard to that keyboard to that keyboard with the same sound, and none of them play it the same. So I don't want to use that as, I don't have control over how bad. So many times I hear people play the worst possible, they play with super hard, and they, you know, I'll give you a story. We, with our voicing team, we have this gentleman by the name of Michele Paciulli, just a mad scientist, genius programmer from Italy. And there are O1W stories and T-Series and Triton, Trinity stories, where he would come to Japan with his patches. And this is back in the day before the internet and before we could share patches and everybody gets a preview of them. But he would show up, give the voicing team the patches, they would get loaded in, we would sit to do our voicing and we'd play things. And he's got such incredible touch that he could play these and make them sound unbelievable. And the aftertouch was so sensitive. Everybody else played it, made it sound like complete crap. And we, on more than one occasion, had to send this gentleman back to his hotel room in Shimotokaido, Japan, and spend 2 days reprogramming all of his patches so that they could be played by everybody else. And there were tears, and it was not fun because he truly believed that should be these expressive instruments. There's so much control, and they were great. But when you play chords and you're playing like you're some guy in a club, it's going to sound like crap. And so you have to program it thinking about, you know, middleman, not the mad genius with incredible control over velocity and aftertouch, and not the person that's just going to play it, you know, boom. There's somewhere in between, and that's what I do with my voicing. I'm aiming at you guys in the middle so that it's accessible, it's playable. There's some cool things going on, but I try to make it so it's not hidden and it's not technique required to make it work. The mod wheel will do what it wants to do. So that's one of many stories. I mean, it's crazy. It's like, you don't understand. I want these to be musical instruments. We're like, McKelly, my brother. We have to sell these in music stores to people that play really hard with heavy fingers, and it just won't. It will play bad. It makes products look bad. And so things had to be changed. And so I've had lots of experience with aftertouch. So I tend to just keep it out of the equation because it's so easy to make it sound really bad. So I just don't include it with my voicing work. So there. Let's play with pizzicato. Let's make a really cool techno thing. And I was showing you earlier, shift doesn't do anything. Crush does all sorts of things. Oh, is this stream bad? Uh-oh. Hold on one second. Hey, love, are you playing videos or anything? Yeah, it just stopped my stream. I'm sorry. We'll be done in like 15, 20 minutes, okay? Okay. So, my lovely daughter, she's downstairs. I'm going to go be with her in a minute. The stream should get better in a second. She was streaming some videos, so that tends to be what the big culprit is. Because I don't have anything else happening. Sorry about that, guys. I don't know why it does that, but I got to talk to somebody about getting my output, my internet speed here to be increased a little bit. Let's see. If I go here and start, that sometimes gets it back. Heavy compression on the video. Yeah, sorry about that. Let's see if there's anything I can do here. I don't think there's any settings I have access to. Let's see here. It shows perfect streaming in my app that I'm streaming with. Oh, just got better. Just went to yellow. So hopefully it comes back. Okay, so we're gonna do something fun. Let's make a bass. Pizzicato bass. So we're going to use mono, legato. Let's take it down an octave here and probably an octave here. And what's cool is by doing this, by adding crush, that gives me frequencies to play with for filtering, so I can let's get it to be even more pronounced. We're going to do the double steps. We add a step. See how this is changing it? So here it is fuzzy. And then let's have this, there's a modulation happening to velocity. Let's change that to be the 4-step. Let's go to the ARP and turn it on and just be like, maybe just 1 step and then a silent step. Now, well, I'm seeing yellow health stream health. Okay. Now I can either layer this with a synth waveform, and one thing I can do here, there. Let's get this to be a better shape. Needs a little sustain. Without it, now that the trick with this is that maybe we should do this. Maybe the 3-step. I think what I'm going to have to do is make this like an uneven pattern. Let me see something. Because the problem is that because it's a 3-step or a 4-step, you get tied into the rhythmic event. And the next time you play another note, it's a different rhythmic pattern because the starting of the 3-step is at a different location. This is a case where, you know, I think those might be cool for random things. For me, I would rather use velocity and like set this up so that it's doing a pattern. That I have control over, that I know it's going to happen. There's some things I like to have random, but something that's a really strong timing thing, if that's set to where it's going to be changing on you all the time, then that's kind of like, to me, that gets into more like artistic programming where you're making things for your own music. not making something that's going to be consumed by a whole bunch of people and they need to understand how they're going to use it, you know. So artistic programming is great because that's where you make things just for your record that do these really weird things that no one else understands. But it's different, where it's something I'm thinking about you guys and how everybody's going to use this, right? Let's go to the waveforms. And I think instead of just this, I'm going to go to something like, we've got these really cool, if you go to the art presets, these came from one of the Airwave libraries. I pulled them out so that really short. Oh, you know what it is? I know why. Because velocity is so high. It's got this thing where there's these really high velocities and these really low velocities. And I'm like, what's canceling that filter out? It's because of the fact velocity sensitivity. Now, this is a case where the viola has this area of rosin, right? That doesn't have as much energy as a little bit later in it. So you're hearing this delayed. So this is one of those where you need to take the sample start and make it just a little bit later. Here, back to 0. Here, it's late. Even 1's better. Now, I want to get a little bit thicker. We could try out of this. One thing that's really fun, the unison has an octave. Or 2 octaves. 1. It's really this bass, though, that I need to have a sub come out, so. Let's bring the detune. Now that's where we might have some fun with all this crushing stuff as on the mod wheel or something like that, right? Now if we want, just for fun, do I have, let me see what I have loaded. I think I have, yeah, I do. So if we go to Airwave Volume 1, and let's go to the multi and set it to stack mode. So that way I can go over here to, this is really fun to do, of course, add a kick drum. Whenever you're making patches and they're for something you're going to have other people play with, it's really, there's a couple things to do. Number 1, play with other music. Let's go to part 3 and let's add another Airwave, like a hi-hat thing. So let's go down here to the hats. Because now I can see it's not legit sounding enough yet. for me. I'm going to turn off the delay. Let's have a snare added to this just because we got to keep it going. So let's go here to the snares, hi-hat, kicks, snares. Now, what I need to do to get this to be more legit really has a lot to do with production stuff, because it's maybe having maybe a little more bark on this. Maybe an LFO that's just slightly changing this a little bit. And maybe have this, let's take it all the way out. Let's sync it to a in dance music, everything is about repeated cycles. So having an LFO do something like this, and I'm going to go to a triangle. I've talked about this in past videos, but just so we know, the sine wave shape, which is the default, it has this area at the very top and the bottom range where it's close to the same value. Whereas a triangle, it's always going up and then it's always going down. Hear that? And let's go to the sine wave. Because of this curvature right in here, it stays at the top longer than this. And let's go over here. Maybe just on that sound, just layer B. Some delay happening. Maybe just for fun. Okay, so let's have the same LFO. If you go down here to all mod sources, you can now choose the whole list. Let's say mod LFO 1. Let's have it also changing. Then let's have a chorus echo delay here with just a little bit of depth. And after that, I need to thicken it back up. So I'm going to put another compressor. I don't need this compressor. Well, maybe I do. There. Now, I might put this here and put an EQ right here. So I have some harmonic stuff just subtly changing, which when you put it into the dance track, it catches energy. It's like, you notice it. If it was just sitting there, even it's just one LFO, right? It's not like if I brought this depth down. Now let's play it. And turn off the effects. The effects are a big part of it. Add the effects. And have some varying of the sound, and it gets a lot more harmonically interesting to the listener of the song. And then let's assign this to be the mod wheel so we can and let's have a cool reverb here for the slap. We get a big long reverb time like this, and go like this, and assign that to the mod wheel. Now, you don't hear that reverb very well, do you? There's so much going on here. So, let's just make this louder as it goes along. So let's bring in a compressor on this, and then just assign this to the wheel. Just a little bit, because so you can do stuff like that. So that's cool. Nice bass sound. Save patch as BPM bass. Techno Viola. Viola. What should I call it? Well, it's a Viola sample and a synth waveform, so I know. How about Viola Highway? Viola Techno Highway. And I should put this into the right place. So let's go patches, Mega Magic Viola, ARP, BPM. By saving patches into the correct folder, it will give you the correct tagging. So you can say this is kind of energetic, euphoric, intense, party, power, not peaceful, powerful, upbeat. And I'll fill in all this stuff here later. Save. Now, I had an idea for something else we could do. So I added an octave. Now let's turn on glide. And we can get some really weird stuff if we want. Now, where is the... Yeah, this is where it's coming from. So I'm going to do one more thing that's really tricky. I'm going to assign another LFO to this, and I need to sync it legato, and like half notes on a square wave. So it's alternating between two variations. Let's reverse it. Let's maybe look at this. Okay, so this is like variation 2. Cool. So let's save that because I was thinking I wanted to have something that had a little bit. And square waves are great because it's alternating between two different values, and so you can play with what those two values are. And I mean, this timbre, the crush can do crazy things. So here's without it. So it really depends on what frequencies you want it to hit. We want to be like a slot. I was thinking like it was going to be like added as a additional element for the snare. So without the snare, I almost have like a snare in the bass patch. So that was the idea. So cool, it worked out. So save patch as techno super. We'll just call it 2. How about, I know, VTech. Version 2. And then I'll go back and rename the other one VTech version 1. I like that better. VTech. We all need some Viola tech. Okay. So you have a week and a day, 8 days for making patches. Viola violence. Ray Viola. I like that. Thank you for joining me this Saturday. Next week will be fun. I'll have some patches from people to share, I think. So if you get patches done before Saturday, if you get them to me by like Friday or so, maybe we can play with those on Saturday. But you have until Sunday night as the absolute cutoff deadline. After that, I can't take patches. Shout outs. Where's everybody at? Everybody shout out from where you're at. I'm shouting out from Portland, Oregon. Everybody have a great week. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Awesome. From Spain. Delivery format. Yes. There's 2 ways to deliver patches. Good question. Thank you for reminding me to cover that. Oh, wait. I want to get Logic back. There's 2 ways to deliver patches. One is, let's see here. If you go to your Steam folder, to Omnisphere, you will find in your patches folder, it goes like this. You go settings, library, patches, and then I'm not sure if you're saving to your user folder Or else, if you want, you can be saving patches back into the Mega Magic Viola demo folder because it has all the folders that are part of the current categories file already there. So probably best to save your patches into the Mega Magic Viola demo folder. And that way you can put them in, put categorizing. When you save a patch, as you saw, right? If I go save as, oh, come back over here. Well, I'll just say save, and it's going to say, do I want to replace? I say replace. And so you have your list of your different tags and settings. And this red box means you need to put in something for each of these tags and settings. So you can go through, and these are not correct right now tag-wise because we're in the BPM folder. So this would be something where I want to hit more so it can show me everything so I can quickly turn off all this stuff that it is not. And then turn back to here, and I want this to be a BPM ARP, BPM bass, pulsing. You know, that's all you have to do. You don't have to go down the whole list if you don't want to. Just give it the general stuff. Your mood. This is energetic, intense. The genre. These sounds can typically be used. I did a library for, was it Massive, the one? I just selected every category because where you use genre-wise, it's really subjective. Any sound could be put into anything. If you slow this down, it could be used in a chill track, you know? The intensity level is 1 for most things. This is just how much of the energy of the track it takes up is kind of what they grade this by. And then put your author. If you're not in here, if you haven't put your name as a programmer, all you do is you hit the plus button right here, type in your name, and it will show up in the list. And now you select yourself when you're submitting your patches. And that way, when I get them, your name is added to the database because you have patches. So add a little note, say what the mod wheel does, what you're thinking when you made it, and hit save. And now it is saved. So if you want, it's totally fine to just right click on a Mac and just say compress this folder. It's now the Viola demo where you've saved your patches. Just email this to me. Support@pluginguru.com is fine. I'm going to put this in the trash because we don't need to do that. The other option, if you want, you can also do this where that's actually the easiest. You can also say, where is it? Share sounds. And you can shift click on patches and share them. So you would then, I believe, go over here and shift click like this. You hold down the shift button. You select all your patches that you've made. And then you go up here and you say share sounds. And it says continue. You give it a name and save it. And that way it will create a little thing that I can download and install with your patches on it. So shift works for doing that multiple patch selecting option. And once you've selected all your patches, then you would say share sounds and send them to me, okay? So those are the two options. You can do it from within Omnisphere, or you can do it by just sending me the folder where you're saving your patches, as long as you're saving them consistently to the same patches. John, are you going to post this live video to YouTube? Yes. Every patch is saved to YouTube within an hour or so. Oh, Thom, cool. Send me a note through the website when you're here, and I'll meet you for a beer or something if you're in Portland. All right, Bangkok, Arizona, Oregon, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Sweden, and we have spring. Yes, we're having spring starting up here too. The Lowlands, thank you, Bernie, Camas, Florida, New York, the Baltics, Australia, worldwide. It's so awesome. All right, I'm out of here. I'll see you guys soon. Sorry for being a little down with loss of pets in the family type of thing, but, you know, this business is me. So whatever's happening with me, we kind of all get to share together. So I kind of like that, and I kind of value and appreciate you guys being able to share this and be a part of my life because we're all in this together. All right. Thank you for your support. Don't forget there's a sale at the website. Springtime 25 will save you 25% until the 26th of April. And be good to yourselves and everyone else, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.